Hi, everyone, and welcome to the last session of the day for the first day of week. As we give folks a few minutes to log in to the session and join us, I would love to start this discussion with an icebreaker. And the icebreaker for today is, what was your first job ever? Feel free to drop this in the live chat. Happy to read it. Cicely, what was your first job ever?
I was going to say, can I participate? Because I'm kind of having FOMO right now. Can I jump in?
Of course.
My first job, believe it or not, I talk about it often in my videos, was on an assembly line. I worked putting together in a factory, putting together 18-wheeler trucks. And it was the hardest job I've ever had and one of the best jobs I've ever had. But that was my father's way of teaching me the value of an education was go work in a factory for a summer and see how hard it is. And I was like, ooh. So great experience, but it's been very formative for me as well, as you can tell.
I bet. What do you think made it the best one?
You know what? Listen, I can work an air gun in a truck. Like I got some mad skills on an air gun that summer because you had 10 seconds to do the entire cab of a truck. So I got some mad air gun skills. But you know what? It taught me all the fundamentals that I didn't know. So it was pretty cool in that regard, right? Because I had to drive it. It was an hour and a half from my house. So I had to be up every morning at 4 a.m. to get to work by 5:30 for my shift to start at 6 a.m. So talk about discipline. It was very formative in that regard.
I was going to say, I bet it builds character at their early age.
I cried every day for an entire summer. I was freaking miserable getting up that early when my friends were all out partying. And my dad's like, no, you're going to do this. But it taught me a lot of lessons, and the grit and discipline and kind of resilience out of that was huge. 100%. Yeah.
That's awesome. And look at you now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Lots of good stories to tell.
Great. Well, now that we got most folks in and we're ready to get started, I'm thrilled to have Cicely here. I think she's the only speaker who has been to every week that Quorum has. So this is pretty incredible. I'm happy to be moderating this session with you.
Thank you.
Just to give a bit of a background on Cicely, she is a seasoned public operative. She has served as a legislative director for 2 congressmen. She's a veteran of the C-suite, as she was formerly a vice president of government affairs in Dunkin' Brands, as well as formerly executive vice president of public affairs for the restaurant industry. And now she's the founder and CEO of Summit Public Affairs. Her experience at all levels of government and expertise in the boardroom allows her to speak with the authority on the public and private sectors, as well as their countless intersections. And as you can tell, Cicely is a very diverse person. She had many job experiences, starting from trucks to all the way to having her own firm now. So I'm super happy to listen to this chat, and I'm going to hand it over to Cicely now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yeah, that bio is a very short way of saying I'm old, and I've been around DC for almost 20 years this year. So yeah, thanks for that introduction. I really appreciate it. And Wonk Week is my jam, clearly, because I've been to every one of them, and I look so forward to Wonk Week. So it's a pleasure to be here with you guys again. And I am super stoked about talking today about career in public affairs, because a lot of you who watch my live videos on LinkedIn, you reach out to me and you have a lot of questions about navigating the world of public affairs and government relations, working on the Hill, and, just kind of the stuff that we do every day, but how you progress in that career. So when Quorum reached out and said, hey, you want to have this conversation? I, said, absolutely. And since we started this chat with trivia, I'm going to keep the trivia going. I told Avery at Quorum, right? I'm going to fall right in line here with the trivia of Wonk Week. And I have a question for folks. Now, Sanyaya, I can't see the chat, so you can tell me if somebody answers this correctly. But here's the question for the day, guys, to get you started this afternoon. There's a famous politician who has a quote, and the quote says, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Who said that quote? Who's the author of that quote? And you have your Google machine right in front of you. The interwebs can help you if you want to type this in, but put it in the chat. Who Who said that famous quote? If they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Anybody in the chat?
Someone Googles it right now.
Come on.
Shirley Chisholm.
I just saw somebody got it right. Yes. So is it Tamara? Tamara Lewis? Okay, Tamara, if you will do me a favor, the interwebs are working. So yes, you got that right. If you will stick your address in the chat, I will send you a copy of my new best-selling book. Hopefully you guys can see that. Pull Up Your Chair, 5 Strategies to Change the Trajectory of Your Career. The Pull Up Your Chair book is based on that quote from Shirley Chisholm. So Tamara, if you'll throw your address in the chat, then I am, oh, we got a couple of Shirley Chisholms. Okay, tell you what, you know what, man, I can't choose. Okay, so tell you what, I'm counting Annika, I'm counting Shirley. Nope, I got Ariel, Suzanne, Annika, Celeste, Tamara. Okay, if all 5 of you or 6 of you, depending on how you count, because it's one of those days. If you throw all of your addresses in the chat, I will mail each of you a copy of the book because I think you all got it right, kind of like simultaneous in timing. So everybody send your physical address, your mailing address, and our team will send you a copy of the book. Okay, so let's use that as a jumping off point for this conversation because Shirley Chisholm, if you don't know her, please Google her. Freaking iconic in DC in terms of she was the first African-American congresswoman, but also the first female to run for president back in the 70s, way before it was cool and anybody knew that she was doing that. She was a trailblazer. She set the stage that if she doesn't invite it to a conversation, she's going to pull up her chair and chart her on course. And what I find the parallels of her story and that quote to be so powerful for those of us in public affairs, it is that we have a very unique opportunity for what we do every day to really chart our own course in DC. Look, you heard Sanyaya kind of read through my bio, very non-traditional in terms of how I navigated DC, but there's been one common theme that led to the book that led me to use that quote, and that is, if you're not invited to the table, pull up your chair and make your own way. And today I'm going to give you 5 strategies on how to do exactly that. For those of you who want a copy of the book, it's full of stories from the Hill and lobbying and Obamacare and all kinds of fun stuff that I've been involved with over the years. So you'll enjoy all the political stories. But we're going to real quick run through the 5 strategies that make up the CHAIR methodology. I'm going to give you guys some examples about how to apply those because I learned these lessons doing the same thing you do every day. Lobbying, working on the Hill, communications, representing members or clients, or working, in a company. What you do every day is what I've done for the past 20 years, what I continue to do in my firm. So these strategies are going to apply to you if you, in fact, choose to apply them. But I want to make one point before I jump in on the 5 strategies. People are fascinated by what you do every day. I get the question all the time, how did you get a book deal with Forbes? They looked at my LinkedIn profile, not kidding, and they reached out to me and said, you have a very unique background. Have you ever thought about writing a book? And I said, well, my background's not unique for DC. There are tons of us in this town who do this. And they said, we're not familiar with that. Like they were very, very, very interested in learning about how business and politics kind of coexist together. So when I tell you that you have a unique opportunity to leverage your career in public affairs to either stay in public affairs or do other things, then please know I'm kind of living proof of that. The book is kind of living proof of that, is that people see what we do and our skills are so marketable and they want to know more. And I tell people, I stay in DC and still do what I do in DC, even though I'm doing career coaching, because you can't do it anywhere else. So as you apply these 5 strategies, one thing I hear from people all the time is, you don't know what's next, not sure what's the next step to take. Maybe you want to advance in your career. You're not sure how. If you're new to public affairs and in your career, I certainly have a lot of you who reach out to me and say, what do I do? I'm in a toxic work environment. I don't love my coworkers, but I love what I do. There's all kinds of manifestations of the career questions that you guys reach out to me with, mostly on LinkedIn, but also on other social platforms. So today we're going to answer some of those questions. And I encourage you to put questions in the chat. Sanyaya's going to let me know if we're going to do questions as we go along. She's going to jump in and stop me, or we can take them at the end. So you guys hit us with questions. I am not going to talk for the entire 45 minutes because good Lord knows y'all don't want to hear me for 45 minutes. I'd rather be in dialogue and conversation. That's kind of my jam. And so we'll keep this short and then open it up for robust questions. But I took Shirley Chisholm's quote, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair, and took the word chair and developed 5 strategies that I've used to advance in my public affairs career that I now teach and coach others. And I'm going to give you a unique opportunity to help us frame out something at the very end. So keep watching until we're done. But let's go. Number 1, strategy number 1 is the C. Now, people see this and they say, is the C for confidence? Nope. The C stands for champion yourself. And don't Google this because the book's online. So please don't Google this. Let me kind of walk you through the methodologies, and then you guys can go back and see it on my website, or you can Google it later. But the C is for championing yourself, because the one thing I learned that you probably learned is you represent companies every day. You represent members if you're in a trade association. Maybe you represent groups or other companies, depending on kind of what organization you're in. You're taught to advocate and represent others in our world. One thing I've learned, no one ever taught me how to advocate for myself. So you show up every day. If it's on the Hill, you're working for constituents. If you're in a trade, if you're in a company, if you're in a think tank, you constantly have all these demands, all these interests you're representing, but no one tells you how to advocate for yourself. So the idea behind the C strategy of championing yourself is self-advocacy. Because if you don't put your best foot forward and champion yourself, no one will do it for you. And I've had so many people on my teams over the years who would say to me, well, I thought you knew I wanted that promotion, or I thought you knew I wanted that job, or I thought you knew I wanted to be on that project. And I would say to them, if you don't tell me, how am I supposed to know? So this idea of championing yourself, and I chose that word very purposely because it's a very kind of active word, right? Champions are the top of their game, right? They bring their A game. They do advocate for themselves. They've gotten to where they are with hard work and determination and perseverance. And that is that mental picture I want to leave with you, is the idea of you can be a confident person and never open your mouth to advocate for your own advancement. So that's why I didn't choose confidence, because it's not enough. Confidence is great, but it's not enough. You actually need to champion yourself. And I tell people all the time, you can be your own best champion or your worst critic. You get to decide that. But so often we're not taught how to advocate for our own advancement in the workplace. And there's something I developed. You'll read it in the book if you buy it. If not, reach out to me. I'll explain it more to you. It's called the U list. 4 things that you need to advance in your career that you need to champion yourself on: your value, your contributions, your accomplishments, and your lessons learned. Every job I've had in DC for the last 20 years, and even in the legal world before that, those 4 things. Because your personal value is what gets you to the table. It's what differentiates you from everybody else. When you're championing yourself, you're championing your own personal worth. And here's the kicker: it has nothing to do with your job title. So many of you, when you reach out to me and you want resume help, or you want to talk about your career advancement, you always say to me, well, but I did this last year, and you give me your sales numbers, or you'll give me your, you did this or you did that. And you always frame your accomplishments in terms of your job. And when I ask people, what is the personal value that you have to offer that no one else does? Dead silence. I get dead silence. Because we're not conditioned to answer that question of who you are and what you bring to the table that no one else does. We're not conditioned to answer that question about ourselves, because we're so busy worried about defining ourselves in terms of our job. So this idea of advancement in your career has to start with you and those 4 things. You can get any job you want in any industry you want if you know how to articulate those 4 things and articulate them well. Strategy number 2 is the H in CHAIR. H is for honesty. So here's the bookend. Here's the not so fun moment on a Tuesday afternoon. H is for honesty, because I have been very blessed in my career, many of you have as well, to have some bosses who probably gave you some pretty tough feedback. And you may say, well, how's that a blessing? Because I was in my own way sometimes, and I didn't know it. If value, think about it this way. You can champion yourself and your value and what you bring to the table and why you want that next role, that job, that promotion. You can do all those things, right? But if you're standing in your own way, that's a problem. You can actually undermine your own success and credibility and not know it because we all have blind spots. Somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn a couple of months ago and she said, I read your book because I spoke to her. I did a book event in DC a couple of months ago and she reached out and said, your book got it all wrong. I literally laughed when I saw the message on LinkedIn. I was like, no one's told me yet that the book sucks and I got it all wrong. And she said to me, you got it all wrong. And I said, all right, well, let's jump on the phone and you can tell me basically why I got it all wrong. And as we started talking on the phone, the reframe here was she had some blind spots and some weaknesses she needed to work through. She had some preconceived notions of her colleagues and how she interacted with them. And the biggest part of your weaknesses and blind spots and why you've got to be gut honest with yourself is you've got to know how you land on people and how you're perceived. And she wasn't perceived very well. She was harsh. She just did not realize how she came across. So by the end of that phone call, she told me I didn't get it wrong. She apologized, but she said that, that we all have blind spots and we all have some areas we've got to work on that may be inhibiting our growth, but we don't know it. That's the definition of a blind spot. So, Senyali, before I go to number 3, do you have any questions for me or do you want me to keep going, my friend?
I have 2 questions. So the first question that was asked is, as a manager of public affairs professionals, how would you champion for their career development?
Yeah. So how would I champion for their career development? So the first thing I would do is you have to give your team members space and encouragement to let them know they can come have that conversation with you. The last team that I led was a very large team, and they had not ever been told or allowed or kind of coached on how to come have a career advancement, how to have a conversation about what their interests were. So you've got to give them space and encourage them to come have that conversation. That's why I always coach my team. Don't assume I know. If you knock something out of the park and you did a great job or you got a compliment from a member of the association, let me know those things. Don't assume that, I know. So my biggest piece would be you've got to give them permission and coach them and help them understand it's okay. It's okay to advocate for their own personal advancement. As a matter of fact, they should do that. Not only is it okay, they should do that, and you should give them the space and help them understand how to do that. And if you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to go through those 4 things and explain to you kind of how that may apply to your team.
Great. I have more questions coming in. So the next question is, as a Latina, we're taught to be humble and avoid being a bother. I used to start all conversations with, I'm sorry to bother you. Now I spend time to educate others on this cultural trap, how to overcome it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. You got to reach out to, we got to have this conversation. So yes, we are all so guilty of over apologizing. I literally just did a video the other day about stop apologizing. There's no, I'm sorry. So let's just say that. But listen, it's something that a lot of us have been taught culturally, our families or where we're from. It is that humility. And here's the piece that we get wrong sometimes about the humility piece. Your personal advancement, your personal value, your personal growth has nothing to do with anybody else but you. So it's not a competition. It's not comparing yourself to someone else. Hold your head high. Be proud of who you are. If you're a confident person, own and wear that confidence because it has nothing to do with anybody else. So your humility is still about how you show up every day, and you can do that in a very authentic way that absolutely still honors your worth and your value and showing up as your best self. So my point is they're not mutually exclusive. And I get this question all the time. Well, I don't want to see competitive or, so I don't want people to think I'm, don't worry about what people think. Worry about you and how that humility translates for you, but how you can also stay true to yourself. Don't hide yourself because you're worried about, that humility coming across to others. It's important that you not see those 2 things as mutually exclusive. How about one more, and then I'll jump back over to the third strategy.
Okay. Next one is, which mentors in your career had the most influence on you and why?
That's a good one. Oh man, that's a good one. So I don't know if you've been around DC for a while, you probably know a guy named Jim Cooper. Jim is retiring this year. He was my second boss in Congress. Jim was a great mentor, great friend. He's in the book. Jim shared a quote with me very early on in my career in Congress, and he said, because I kept calling him Congressman, and he would say, call me Jim, and I'd call him Congressman, and he was like, call me Jim. And I was like, dude, I'm not calling you Jim. You're a congressman. I'm not calling you by your first name. And he was like, but you've known me for years. I was like, I don't care. And he said to me, he said, this was literally 15, 20 years ago. He said to me, when you see yourself as an equal, you will be viewed as an equal. Everyone puts their pants on one leg at a time. So when you walk in rooms around here, view yourself as an equal and you'll be treated as an equal. And that stuck with me, as you can tell, very formative. So Jim's one. Another guy who was very instrumental in my career, his name is Chuck Marin. He was a lobbyist in DC for years. And I would literally sit with Chuck and just say, tell me how to think strategically. I just saw you do X. Tell me how you did that. How did you think about that? How do you think about public policy? Chuck was great at connecting dots and forecasting out 2, 3, 4 years about how policy was going to manifest itself. And so I would just sit with him and say, just talk. I just want to absorb everything that you say. And he literally taught me how to be a better strategic thinker, a better visionary, but he also was very formative in my time in DC. I still talk to Chuck all the time, even though he's retired. But I learned so much from him by simply saying, will you teach me what you know? And he said yes. And that was he's an important friend and mentor to this day. So those are the two I would point out. So I'll come back to the rest of those. Let me finish the last 3 strategies and then we'll jump back into questions. Okay. So strategy number 3 is A. The A is for adaptability. You guys ready? Adaptability is the core competency you are judged on every day, but nobody told you. If you are on the Hill or if you're in a public affairs organization, look, crap happens in the mornings, right? The news cycle kind of takes over your day sometimes. And I've seen people who really, they have 10 things on their list that day and they got to do those 10 things. And if they don't get through those 10 things, they are not a happy camper at the end of the day. They're not adaptable physically to their surroundings. As events change, things happen. You're not going to get through your list. The physical adaptability is something that people notice. Perhaps the more important piece is the mental adaptability. Are you a mentally adaptable person to not only what's happening around you, but are you mentally adaptable in your interactions? Because their adaptability skills are interpersonal skills, their teamwork, it's communication. So many ways that adaptability manifests itself every single day in your career, in your office, in your workplace. Being mentally adaptable is as important as being physically adaptable to actually what's happening around you. And it's one of those, nobody's ever going to point it out to you until you get it wrong. If you do well being mentally and physically adaptable to what's going on, and mentally, there are a lot of language cues I give people about how to be mentally adaptable to different situations, and I actually kind of talk you through those. But the key piece here is that adaptability is so important, but no one ever teaches you how to be an adaptable person, an adaptable leader. We hear all those buzzwords. No one ever walks you through it. So the A is for adaptability, and knowing that adaptability mentally and physically is key. The I is one of my favorites. The I is for impact. People see that and they say, oh, you mean influence? No, write this down. Influence is temporary. Impact is lasting. You want to be a person of impact, not a person of influence. Influence is very episodic to where you are, who you're dealing with in that moment. You can be influential today and, tomorrow, nobody wants to talk to you. Your influence can wane over time depending on situations. Your impact is lasting. And there's some great stories in the book about how I realized my impact, very early in my career when I started at Dunkin' Brands, Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin Robbins. And I'll tell a quick story and then we will, I'll move on to the last strategy. When I started working for Dunkin', it was April of 2008, right? Pivotal presidential election, Obama, McCain, and I was literally probably 3-4 weeks into my job and I got an email. And, it's one of those where somebody CC'd me. I probably should have been CC'd on it, but okay, I was. So I read it and there was a new marketing strategy that Baskin wanted to do to honor the election. Okay, cool. And so as I'm reading, I was like, this is not oh my God, this is not good. So they wanted to introduce 2 new ice cream flavors, one for President Obama, one for John McCain. Now, if you know where this story is going, then you will know that the chocolate vanilla swirl is a great ice cream flavor for Baskin. Probably not so great to use when you're talking about President Obama being the first interracial president. Peanut brittle. Love peanut brittle flavored ice cream. Probably not the flavor you want to use when you were talking about Mr. McCain running for president, because he was 72 at the time. So I see this email of this great marketing strategy, and I'm like, oh, geez. And I'm like, well, I'm the new kid. Do I say something? Do I not say something? Crap. Do I let this go and just know this is going to be a PR nightmare? Or do I say, hey, guys, let me help you get to yes. So let's celebrate Mr. Obama, and let's celebrate Mr. McCain, but let's do so in a different way that's probably not going to be a backlash. So I literally agonized over this email, and I finally responded and said, hey, I have a great idea that's still going to accomplish your goals of honoring these 2 gentlemen, but it's going to help you get there in a very different way than these 2 ice cream flavors. And I put it in an email, and I hit send, and I thought, crap, these people are going to freaking fire me over this, because I probably wasn't supposed to be CC'd on that email, but I was. And they, I kind of hit send, and I thought, oh, this sucks. I'm going to get hammered for this. And they all came back to me. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, never thought about those points. So glad you mentioned something. And I learned this concept of how to get people to yes. If you're in public affairs, your main driver should be getting people to yes. Help people reach their objectives, the same objective, but maybe in a very different way than they thought. It's what I did on the Hill. It's what I did at Dunkin', National Restaurant Association, that I do for my clients now. When my clients come to me and they have an objective they want to accomplish, I can tell you how to accomplish it. But the road to get to yes, I can get to yes, which is your objective, but I'm probably going to give you a very different strategy, like I just did in that Dunkin' and Baskin example, to get to yes in a very different way. Help people think outside the box. You guys may have heard of the rule of 3. The rule of 3 for creative problem solving. 1 solution is a trap. 2 solutions are a dilemma. 3 or more are actually where you want to be, because then you're opening up your mind to different solutions. That's what you're doing when you're a person of impact. You're not going along to get along. You're not hey, this is the way we've always done it, so we've got to continue to do this way. You're actually challenging status quo thinking, and people love to be around people who do that, because you're creating impact on your audience, for your members, for who you serve. People love to be around people who have impact. So understand that being a person of impact is far beyond influence. And by the way, the I is not for imposter syndrome. I teach a whole course on imposter syndrome, because there are 7 root causes of imposter syndrome and 5 types. And imposter syndrome can seep in at all times. But for people of impact, you're not an imposter, because you're bringing impact every single day. There's a whole lot more I can go into, but just think about it. Championing yourself gets you to the table. Impact ensures you stay there. Last strategy, and then we'll go back to questions. R. This one gets everybody. People say, why did you R? What does the R stand for? The R stands for regrets. Now, I'm glad we're on camera, because you can't throw anything at me when I'm getting ready to say what I'm getting ready to say. Your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, throw it, ditch it, erase it. I don't know, delete it if it's on your computer. And yes, this is where people get very controversial with me. I posted this on LinkedIn last year, and people lost their freaking minds because I said, ditch your 5 or 10-year plan. Here's why. And here's why I chose regrets. Because every opportunity I've gotten in DC was not part of my plan, did not come in the time frame I thought it was going to come in. Heck, most of it was like, hey, you should go talk to this person. And I was like, well, why? Because it kind of looked like work, not as an opportunity. You're not thinking big enough, and you're not dreaming big enough, and your plan will never be big enough for the opportunities that are going to come your way. I was a prosecutor in my career, never thought about going to DC. But this opportunity came, and I thought, I've never been to Washington. I'm from small rural Tennessee. Why the heck would I go to Washington, D.C.? But I thought, I'll try it for 6 months and see what happens. Not part of my plan. I had no legislative experience, never worked in a political environment. And I was like, what the heck am I going to do in Washington? Going from there to Dunkin'. I had no restaurant industry experience, but somebody came to me one day and said, have you ever thought about working in a corporate setting. And I said, no, why would I do that? Same thing with the Restaurant Association. I was recruited into be the executive vice president of public affairs. This book deal, somebody reached out on LinkedIn and I thought, this has got to be a joke. The opportunities that come your way are never where you think. They're never packaged the way you think, and your plan is not big enough. Because some of the opportunities that are going to come your way in this world, in DC and public affairs around the country, look, you guys are stationed all around the country. You're not just in DC. I say that from my point of reference because that's where I've always been based, but you're based all around the country. You're going to have opportunities in your companies maybe to get outside of public affairs and do other things. You may have opportunities that come your way you never dreamed of. Don't miss them, because sometimes they don't come the way you think. They're not packaged the way you think, and they're not part of your plan. You're going to miss some amazing opportunities, and you're going to have a lot of regrets if you stick to a plan that you can't dream big enough or far enough. Okay. So there's a lot more to the regret side. There's a lot of stories behind that. I'm not going to go into those for the sake of time. What I will simply say is you're not dreaming big enough and you're not thinking big enough. Go bigger, dream bigger, think bigger at the opportunities that are come your way. And if you want to have a conversation, reach out to me. I'll tell you every single one that's come my way that was never part of my plan. I was going to be the first African-American Supreme Court justice, but Joe Biden didn't know that. Nobody told he was supposed to pick me, right? So, but that's what I wanted to be when I was 8 years old. Literally, I'm that kid. But I will tell you, the opportunities in DC have been far greater, far bigger, far better than I could ever imagined, being in this world that we all live in every day. So be careful that you don't miss opportunities because they're just not part of the plan, because your plan may not be big enough. And that's an important lesson for you to learn. Okay, I'm done. I promise. Actually, I'm not done. One more thing. Let me finish up with this. I've given you 5 strategies and 5 career tips. Okay, I'm giving them to you pretty quickly. Reach out to me. I'm on all the socials if you want to talk through it. Happy to talk through it. Let me ask for your help, though, on something, and then we're going to get to questions. I want you guys to help us shape what we're getting ready to launch in 2023. Now, this is risky because everybody who knows about this is under an NDA. Can't put all of you under NDAs, but what I can say to you is, I'm a big fan of Quorum, because when I literally found these guys as April 2015, when they were, first being started, and I was like, Quorum is changing the game. I want to be part of something that changes the game. And I've been a huge fan. As I said in my LinkedIn post today, I've been fangirling over Quorum ever since their inception and their founding. Think of what we're getting ready. We're building the Quorum of your career. Let's put it that way. We're building something that's going to be the most comprehensive career resource center ever created, that will literally walk with you every step of the way in your career. There will be content tailored toward public affairs professionals. Here's my ask. If you want to help us shape this, then reach out to me, because we're literally doing focus groups around the country right now. What do people want? What resources do they want access to? How can we provide it? We're bringing in experts, leaders from all around the country to help do this. So you get to help shape it, because you guys are my people. So let me know, reach out to me if you want to help shape it. I'd love to have a phone call with you. If you say, I don't want to shape it, I just want to know when it's ready, then text the word careers, CAREERS, to 66866. That group who's in my community will get exclusive access to this project we're launching before it goes public. So we're going to give exclusive access to anybody who's on that list. So that's careers, text careers to 66866. Okay, I'm done. I promise. I just want to make sure that I give you guys the opportunity, because we have such similar backgrounds, that you guys have a chance to shape what we're getting ready to launch, and it's going to be freaking amazing. So if you want to be part of it, let me know. Okay, I'm done. I promise. What's next? What other questions do we have?
So the other question is, do you have any suggestions for those of us who are not neurotypical to understand how others may perceive us if they're not direct or honest?
How do people perceive you if they're not direct or honest?
Yes.
Great question. I don't have time to go into all the details here, so feel free to reach out to me. There are, I think I teach 5 or 6 strategies on how to do that. The basic premise, though, about know how you land on people. You have been told at some point how you land on people. People they may not be honest. Let's be honest, they're probably passive aggressive, but they've said it. So if you do some kind of honest reflection on feedback you've gotten, you probably have gotten feedback about the perception, how you land on people, but there are some different strategies you can use to kind of get that information. Reach out to me. I'm happy to give you those strategies and walk you through each one of those and how it may. I'd love to know more about your situation and how I can actually apply those to you. So in its basic form, it's been said to you at some point, but if you want to go deeper than that, let me walk through your situation. I'm happy to do it with you. Just reach out to me on LinkedIn or my email address is Cicely@CicelySimpson.com. So it's Cicely@CicelySimpson.com. So you can also reach out to me there.
Great. Next question is, can you speak to keys to success for folks transitioning into public affairs as a career change?
Where are you transitioning from? So career change, where are you coming into public affairs from? I'd love to know that piece of information. You guys are going to learn from me. Everything matters in context. So a piece of information without context is just an information piece. So the context kind of gives me like, oh, you're coming from here into there. So if you have context around it, right, everything matters in context. So if you would chime in and tell me where you're coming from, that would be helpful for me to kind of be more direct in my answer. My general answer is if you're coming into public affairs, you have to go through those 4 steps. You have to go through those 4 steps of the U list, as I called it. Knowing your value, your contributions, your accomplishments, and your lessons learned. You need to know what those things are because you're coming into a very different career change. It sounds like a very different world. You need to work through those 4 pieces and figure out what your personal value statement is. That's what I call it, a personal value statement, not personal branding. This is beyond branding. Your personal value statement. When you make a career change, as I've done, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 times, depending on how you count, as other people who reach out to me have done, when you make a career change, it is not about the title of the role you had. Remember, it's about you. It's singularly focused on you. And so what do you bring to this new career that's your differentiator that sets you apart from everybody else? That's the question you're going to want to go through and analyze and reach out to me. I can help you do it. But that in essence is what you're going to want to do to come into this, any career change, but especially into a public affairs world.
The next question I have is, do you support the S.T.A.R approach when it comes to describing work experience or professional skills in an interview or cover letter?
I don't use the STARS approach. I don't know. This may be controversial, but I don't use the STARS approach. I use the 4 things I just gave you because I've looked at enough resumes. Everybody's looking at enough resumes or even interviews. People want to know who you are. And I tend to think some of the approaches that are out there fall short of getting to the actual point that an interviewer wants to know in your interview, whether that's through your resume or cover letter. So I'm happy to walk through why I don't do the STARS approach. And I actually advocate for the 4 things instead, because this is really the 4 things that have worked for me. But generally, no, I don't use that approach. I'm not saying it's wrong or right. I'm just saying I don't use that approach and I don't coach others to use that approach.
Do you have any advice for having conversation with folks on your team to address their and your own blind spots?
Yes, but be careful. Look, the 3, and I only teach this to people who come to me, but I'll say it today. The 3 most impactful words you can use in any conversation of that nature is help me understand. So if someone has some anger issues towards you, like for example, let's just walk through this. This is a good kind of example to give. Let's say, listen, we've all been in conversations, we've all been in meetings. Somebody tends to, interrupt all the time, or maybe you have the colleague who kind of has the condescending tone. I've been known to call people out in public before, but more importantly, behind the scenes, hey, can we talk for a second? And you just pull them aside. So help me understand. I don't think you realize how you came across, but help me understand why you were kind of come across, very demeaning, or why I sense some anger from you. The 3 words of help me understand can bridge the gap of a very adversarial conversation. And now you're seeking to understand someone's mindset and rationale versus being accusatory about how they just showed up in, that moment. Listen, I've had somebody throw something at me before in a one-on-one meeting. Thankfully, it wasn't heavy. It was a pin, but I literally had somebody on my team throw something at me. And I'm like, did that just happen? And I literally said to her, I said, help me understand why you thought that was a really good idea just now. Because pretty sure you don't ever throw something at your boss. So what I would say to you is bridge the gap of how that person may not know how they're showing up. And look, I kind of give 3 examples of this, how you can kind of really challenge somebody in that moment. But I'll just say, use those words to help you bridge that gap of a tough conversation, but you need to have the conversation if somebody's showing up in that way. Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you.
Someone says the ice cream story reminds me of an episode of Veep where Julia Louis-Dreyfus visited an ice cream shop in DC. Well, I might get in trouble for telling that story. So, sorry, go ahead, Senor. I just saw that in the corner of my eye and I'm like, the ice cream story, it's in the book, so I might get in trouble. But go ahead, Senor. I'll answer more questions. I know we've got a few minutes left.
That's okay. Actually, those were all the questions that got asked. Thank you so much for answering all of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let me wrap this up. Fabulous moderator. So, thank you so much. Hey, listen, Quorum team, you guys know I love you. Thanks for the opportunity to come share these strategies. I know it was kind of quick and we're just scratching the surface, but appreciate the opportunity. And I invite you guys, reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. I just started TikTok. God help me. Reach out to me if you have questions. I'm happy to talk through more questions for you. Also happy to kind of tailor advice to your specific situation. But if you want to be part of what we're launching next year, I encourage you guys to reach out. You help us shape it, help us be part of it. I'd love to get your thoughts and love to hear from you. So Quorum team, thank you so much for the opportunity. I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Actually, just got a question as you were wrapping it up. Where can people purchase your book?
It's on Amazon. Okay. It's in Amazon.com. So you can go to Amazon and purchase it. I think we're getting ready to run another it's an Amazon bestseller, but I think we're running another bestseller campaign. So if you get it right now, you'll probably get it at a discount because we're running some different campaigns, or Wall Street Journal campaigns and some other bestseller campaigns. So you could probably get it right now for a discounted price if you grab it. But thank you for asking. I hope you enjoy it. And of course, if you want an autographed copy, you got to reach out to me because I've got to send that to you directly, or my team has to send that to you directly. So if you want an autographed copy with a personal note, then reach out to me directly and we can facilitate that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining it. And I hope you had a fantastic day 1 of Wonk Week. Day 2 starts earlier tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. because we're going to be talking to our team in Brussels. And our team in Brussels will lead a session with Nick DeSarna and Joao Sousa of the Public Affairs Council. Nick and Joao will be discussing what EU public affairs professionals can learn from the US and what US public affairs team can learn from the EU. Following that, we have a full day of trivia and content that we cannot wait to share with you. And I will be handing this over to my wonderful co-host, Avery.
Hey everyone. Yeah, like Ksenia said, we're super excited to finish off day 1. Thank you so much for participating. If you want to learn more about different products within Quorum, you can head up to the tab to the Engage feature and learn more about our feature or about our products. And tomorrow we're talking about, like I said, EU and the US. So we'll be excited to see you. Tomorrow we'll also have trivia and all the fun things. Another $250 in prizes is available. So bring on your best minds and everything. So have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thank you.